Because the value of knowing yourself is greater than anything. Because your world will completely change. You might think of the world as some objective reality that we all share in some way. But there are as many worlds as there are beings. Everyone has their own interpretation, their experience of this moment here. You can project all sorts of things on me, on the others here, on the situation that creates something for you. So if you ask two people who had the same experience, they could give a completely different evaluation of it. But that also means that whatever you think that you are will have the largest effect on how you perceive what you call your reality. If you think that you are a separate person that is a victim for certain circumstances, and whatever you fear in those circumstances, that will be the emphasis of what stands out to you. And you might say things, people always use me, people always do this and this, and you are focused on the outside with all those things. You say, I always come in these situations, I have so much bad luck, and this happens. But all these things are what is possible because of your fears, because of your view of who you are. I'm not saying that things will not happen in your life, but the drama of them and the situations comes from identification. Otherwise, they're just things happening, and then they're done. And the thing that the true meaning of karma is that your actions, you know this word karma? It's often quite misused, like it's some kind of game with points. If you do good things, you get good points. It turned into some strange thing, but the original meaning of karma is action, and that action continues. So if there is karma, it just means that you have done an action, but it is not done in the moment. It is you have a relationship with it in time. You think that there is something that has to be done with it continuously. And this is not on an aware level usually. It just feels like I'm not done with this. This person insulted me and now I have to get back. This, whatever that is just karma continuing. That your thoughts are not done with the moment. And notice these things, because if they just continue and escalate all the time, it will just drain you completely. It will take so much energy from your life. So finding to be with the now as it is in all that. Because then you confront also, if something is needed to be confronted, you will do it right away. Because you don't want anything to linger. Because it just creates thoughts, it just creates more karma. It just creates more action that has to be done in the future. It will occupy your mind. So when you're done with things, you don't have a strong feeling and have to tell everyone that you're done with something. Do you recognize this? Have you done that at some point? I'm so done with this fear or this behavior, and then you tell everyone about that all the time. That is not being done with it. That is just karma continuing. Being done with something means that you don't think about it anymore, that it is done. And this is what meditation should do. It should create space. There should be a natural spaciousness. If you practice sincerely, that should be the effect of your meditation. That naturally there comes spaciousness in your mind. You're out walking and there is just walking. There's not thinking about what you're going to have for dinner or what you have to plan or what you have to fix. There just comes naturally moments of just walking. And if you do simple chores at home, if you clean or cook or whatever you do, that space can also be there, that it is just those simple things happening. And when you do things that involve your mind a lot, if you have a work that is very heady, then that's also fine. But the moments that it can naturally be silent will not be usually so prominent in those. And that also makes you enjoy very, very simple things. Things like waiting, that you might have been struggling with before, suddenly is, oh, this bus doesn't come. It doesn't come for another hour. Okay. And you just feel like, I can just be here. That is a great difference from suffering. Oh no, now I'm late again. This and this is going to happen. The consequences of that is this and that. And it has so much to do with just trusting the moment. And whatever happens is what happens. And I know that is a very obvious statement to say, but most people live in with two parallel realities. One, what is happening in this moment, and one is what I would like to happen in this moment, and the comparison between the two. And that comes from feeling separate. Then you can have this idea in time, that you have the idea that you should have another life. But this is of course absurd. What is life? What is this? We talk about our lives usually in very determined ways. And we talk about it as if we know what it is. And I know for many people that it's too scary to be with it in any other way. But we have to understand that the quality of life itself is uncertainty. That you don't know what will happen. And how do you approach uncertainty? If you feel uncertain about your future, do you lie and worry about it all night? Does it help? It's just more suffering. But there can be a feeling in it that you're somehow in control. So you continue this pattern. But there is no control. And how do you come to terms with that? How are you okay with that? With this chaotic universe that just happens? It's a good question, right? How do you relate to that and not get worried sick? You have to show to yourself what the universe is. But when the mind is at play, it can make it into all kind of things. Then you can have a determined philosophy about what the outcome of the universe should be, and you can be disappointed all the time. But if you want to be okay with it, there has to be some trust. And you have to have the feeling that the universe itself wants you well, wants what's good for you. And usually in our lives, if you start to be interested in listening to things like this, you're very tired of your egoic mind. Or you went through some big crisis. That's usually the most common ones. So how do you trust? What is needed here? To with a smile say, let's see what happens. Probably in this moment, if you're attentive, you notice your fear around these things. You notice that if there is something in the way of that, some argument perhaps in the mind. Notice. The mind might say that just a fool trusts. My skeptical mind saves me all the time. But the question is, what is this trust? Can you recognize it? Can you see what it is, how it is different? Does it have to do with something in the relative? Does it mean that you have to trust everyone you meet? You have to trust the beingness of them. But if you feel that their intentions are not good, of course you cannot trust them. But this is just on the relative level. When we talk about distrust, we talk of trusting the whole shebang and what it does for you. And the more you look into this, the more you recognize, the more you will see that it is like the universe is conspiring with you. Because everything that happens is put there for you to know yourself. When you project your fears into your daily life and you get to meet those fears, it just shows you how you're not free. And you can either listen to that or you can say, oh, this happens to me all the time. This sucks. But if you start to look, this might come from me. Then the universe is your guru. And you can say all kinds of things. My situation is unfair. I have not been treated well. I am this, I am that. But look. It made you come here. And you can say, I've been walking through hell. Okay. But it took you here. Who has the stomach to hear these things? There are so few. Who really wants to look at what they are? Who really wants to know? And of course you can be here for all different reasons. But there is something that wants to see, that wants to recognize. And it's also fine to not know why you have come. Because it is an intuitive matter. It's not because some intellectual idea that it is the right thing to do, or I heard that meditation is good. There has to be an intuitive sense that is longing to know yourself. Even though you might say, but I don't really know what that is. Is there any questions today? Can you hear him?
Hello, hello.
Very good.
As always, my question half disappears after a few minutes of being here. The question I had before coming, but it's more some curiosity of. I've been reading about the feather approach. Have you heard about it? I was going to ask you. It's 10 feathers about the ego and the inquiry into the illusions that is very similar to Ramana Maharshi. And in the Vedanta they talk about the self, and in the Buddhism they talk about the no self, anatta, no self, which some say is basically the same thing. Know thyself. So with the inquiry with Nisargadatta, he say abide in the I am.
Yes.
Until the I am illusion is disappeared as well.
Yes.
So in my experience, when that fell away in a way I can't really describe it, it was like there was only experience, no one experiencing it. So they felt like a no self. And yet, is there a sense of self in the stillness? Because it feels like just stillness, no one experiencing stillness.
Okay. There is no difference between anyone. There's just experiencing. So the sense of self, there is a sense of I, but it implies everything.
Because when I said I, after this, the sense of I didn't refer back to what it did before in some way.
Yes, exactly. Because usually the thought I refers to the body, the idea of the person. And when that center is no longer recognized, it feels like there is no center. There is no person. There is no body in the way that the idea of being the body. But it's quite easy to understand also from a just logical, intellectual level that your experience does not stop with whatever boundaries you set for your experience. You understand that you call something mine, my, and you can have a feeling that your field of identity expands. You can say in one situation that it is your body and the experience of your thoughts, but in another situations you expand it to your family. If someone would hurt them, it would be maybe even worse than if you would get hurt. So the sense of personhood can just move. And as you also noticed, it can also disappear. So the question is, are you a phenomena?
No, and I realized that a while back. But there was still some sense of I am. I exist. It referred back to something very, very subtle.
Yes.
Yet when I inquired into that and found nothing, there was only experience. Not even I am. Which freaked me out, by the way, the first time.
Yes. It usually does.
It felt like I didn't have an interior experience. There was no outside and inside anymore. And because you once told me that, I can't remember how you said it in English, but you said it, you are that which is, almost like that. But you said it in Swedish. And
yes.
So it's everything that's left when there's no I, almost. That was my experience. It wasn't even my experience, which was very scary in some way.
Yes.
So
it's just experiencing.
Yes.
That's why I use that word, because it's just, and as every moment, it just happens. But it's just that for a short while you recognized that it just happens. Otherwise, there is the idea, and it can be very, very subtle, the egoic idea that it happens to me. It doesn't need any lengthy words saying me, mine, but it can just be very, very subtle and quiet and just have the sense, this is me.
Yeah. And some traditions, they go to that point and not inquire into that. I am. There's a sense of I, but when it's interesting because when I read Nisargadatta, he said to even see that is an illusion, that I am. And that is somehow very different, and different experience of I'm not the body, I'm not this and this, but like you can in the most subtle sense feel in your bones that I am. I still am. There's the most subtle, there's still a duality in that. When I didn't have an experience of the body, there was stillness, but there was still a sense of I, and that means that it was a sense of me and not me, which created a super subtle duality in some way. And when I inquired into that, like where does that I start and stop?
Mm.
Where's the border of that, and what was that border made of? How far out does it go from nowhere? And when I saw that there were no border, then it was very profound in ways. So when I woke up, it felt like no one waking up. It's impossible to describe.
Yes.
And I was curious. It happened during the summer break, and I was curious to ask you about. I don't know if there's even a question, just sharing my experience. And
yes.
If it's in any way relatable, or if I'm going crazy. No, I'm kidding.
But this is the reason why I also read this, The Fool, because from an outside perspective, if you would be in another context, they would say those things that you're talking about now is completely crazy. You need to seek some help. But you are just inquiring into yourself. It's just that in our culture, that is so, people have the experiences of it, but there is almost no context for it.
Mm.
What I know of, you cannot go into a church or a mosque or anywhere and talk about these things. Perhaps there are some people there. I will not say absolutely not, but I think that the chances are slim. And I think that what you're inquiring into is great. I would just say that continue doing that. And if it's frustrating or it becomes very polarized, you probably also notice that the mind can get very extreme if it feels too stretched. It feels like it has no space. It just wants to go to everything that comforts it and all these things. And just be aware of all those things.
Yeah, it felt like I couldn't, there was nothing left to grasp. So it almost felt like someone pulled the rug under me and I fell, and there was no stuff that usually I could grasp, play the guitar to distract myself, but there were no myself left to distract, and it was a very very profound experience in a way, and it was very scary until there was a noticing of this self is my attempt to control what is, as you said, a parallel reality. There was still some sort of preference in, I wanted something permanent. I wanted something predictable and controllable.
Yes.
And when I didn't have this self anymore, that those options weren't available anymore. Not that I ever were, which was also frustrating in a way. But yeah, it's just as again, I don't know if I have a question about it. It's just that it's hard to share with someone, and it feels good somehow to
absolutely
relate.
And there will come, you might feel unsure about your experience and what other might think of it, and there might come fearfulness of talking about these things, and that you guard your tongue, that you really want to talk about it in the right context. But there will also come a point where it won't matter. Even if the world around you, everyone would say, you are wrong, you would say, no. And they might say, you are crazy, and you also say, no, I'm just what is. I think I've told this before, but I think this is about 10 years ago. I was on a retreat, and I was very much on the edge that you talk about now. I felt like there is the possibility to really go all in. and you feel a little bit crazy when you go there, because there can be a strong feeling that you're leaving people behind, that people won't understand you in the same way, and you can be fearful about those things. And I was in a retreat, and I have a strong feeling that I just, okay, I don't care. If I go crazy, I go crazy. I want to know. Let's go. And in the nighttime, I had this dream. I had a dream that my whole family came, like 30 people, and they did an intervention with me. And they said, you are not laughing at the right moments. You seem happy, but you also seem crazy. We have to do something. What's going on? This kind of. And that was like the last pieces of that fear that got exposed like that. And in my dream, for some reason, my father was defending me. He just said, leave him alone. Let him be. But this is and how it can be expressed. I just want to show you that that is a thing that will happen. If you have that determination to know that is a thing that will happen, you have to meet those fears.
There are still fears coming up. I noticed that I have nowhere to, no private or internal where to run to anymore, to mask, like, I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, it's a very fundamental fear, a subtle one, and as you said, longer periods of stillness appears out of nowhere, and sometimes with that longer periods of stillness, it comes like a blowback of thoughts, like a thought attack, almost like trying to catch up the space that wasn't there. And still there's only thought. There was no me having the thought. The experience is very different when there's no me or I, and that thought doesn't refer back to anything. So, but it's fear, and it's just fear, and I keep letting it be as it is, and we'll see what happens.
Yes, and thoughts also have a completely different quality. They feel much weaker, because when you're identified, the thoughts feel like magnets. Certain thoughts feel like they really stick, like close to your identity, and it feels like it really, really covers your eyes and everything that you. And if you're aware, you can have this experience that is just, oh, I really bought into something now, and it's just really sticky. And one of the qualities of this spaciousness is that thoughts will feel very elusive, and they can even have a very nice presentation to them, but they feel very weak. They don't feel convincing. They just feels like another thing that comes and goes.
Yes, it didn't feel like me anymore, the thought, which scared me in some way, that it felt like someone else. And then I started not listening, but not believing the thoughts. There were thoughts, but they didn't at all feel like me, like all other thoughts I've done through the years. I got scared because it felt in some way that it's someone else here. I'm hallucinating. Or
yes, it can feel alien.
Yeah, and it felt like almost embarrassing to say, but like there was a monster or a demon or something. I'm thinking, oh shit, now I'm hallucinating, and don't believe that thought.
Yes.
So where's the border between hallucinating thoughts or just sounds in the head? And, it's it's.
But
it's
all those things has to do with identity, and the things that can scare you about it has also to do with identity and how your psychological makeup is. So what scares you? Then this is also difficult when we talk about these experiences. Sometimes people compare their experiences. So you talk about how you perceive it, and someone else think that, okay, that is how it's going to happen. But for that person, they don't at all have the same disposition psychologically. So they will, some people just, the first time they experience that the ego falls away and there is just spaciousness, they're just like, oh, finally freedom. And it's just a relief. And for someone else, it can just feel like demons are attacking you. It can feel really intense and scary, because it's just in the psychological makeup of how the egoic mind gets challenged, and what you're fearful of, and what you think certain things are. And for some people, it's like, I'm going crazy. And for someone else, is no one will understand me. I'm going to be alone. Is it worth it? That will be the big one. And for some people, it's just the feeling of dying. If this continues, there is death. And I think that these things are very good to talk about, because we're so scared. Many people are so scared of the thought, I am dying, or that there would be some kind of feeling of dying in any way. They would just suppress it so quickly. And all these things are very, very natural when it comes to exploring yourself. You will meet yourself, and that means meeting all your fears. And all fears spring from one fear, the fear of dying. So that also shows very much the quality of the egoic mind, because only the egoic mind has an idea of dying in time. Do you understand what I mean by that? Yeah. Because the egoic mind has the idea of that you live in a time span, and that there is death. And this, it's quite redundant to talk about it like that, because that is how most people talk about life. But life is only happening in the present moment. So dying is just the dying of the physical body. That is just another thing that is happening. And dying is not personal. This is also something that because you are not the body. And you don't have to believe me. I just want you to inquire into it. Do you understand?
But there's no experience of I am when the body dies.
No. But the personal sense of life is also without that quality. It is just beingness. It is just awareness. And the body appears and consciousness appear. When you're conscious and in deep sleep, consciousness goes. There's no experience of time like that. But you can still say, I had a good night's sleep.
That's very similar to how I try to explain this experience of no reference back to I am. Is like deep sleep. Because
yes.
In deep sleep, it's the only thing I could compare it to. Even in the stillness, there had been a subtle sense of I am. But in deep sleep, that sense of I am is not there.
No.
Then suddenly there were no sense of I am while awake.
Yes.
And that felt really even more empty.
Yes.
In a way.
Yes, because it's just that you're not used to experiencing things like that. As most that practice meditation, it's not like you do it for a couple of weeks and the ego just... For most people it takes time, and they start to get used to with the spaciousness and all these feelings of happiness without the cause. For many people, that is just a thing to get used to. Suddenly you start to understand that happiness arises from me, from just being. And as soon as I let go of expectations and I'm just with this moment, there comes a very natural blissfulness and happiness that comes out of that. But all those things changes how you go about your life. Because before you thought that something external gives you that happiness. And suddenly that changes. And for many people that is a big change. You go from being externally oriented to noticing that, okay, it is all me. Everything comes from me. My expectations, my ideas, they are the thing that holds the natural happiness of this moment back. The peacefulness of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Everything clear? Very good. Okay. Okay.
I'm just gonna further on that. I don't know. When happiness is happening, it's still connected to the body, right? I'm sorry, this is, I don't know how to form this question, but it's just so fascinating, and I related a lot to what you were saying, and especially about the freaking out part of it, of the experience. So I'm just trying to wrap this mind around what is going on and how to handle it. So
okay.
Yeah.
So let's start there.
Yeah, please.
Who is handling it? Really look.
Yeah.
Who is the one who wants to get back in the saddle and have the reins of control?
Yeah, of course, that's the ego.
Yes, but when you say that, you compartmentalize it.
Yeah.
You put it as something, okay, that is the egoic mind. But what are you?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to say, this is the true self, we put that in a box.
Yeah.
This is the egoic mind, I put that in a box. But what are you? That is just pushing things away so that you make them abstract, so the egoic mind can play this philosophical game of the true self and the egoic mind, like two concepts. And you talk about them. Yes, sometimes I feel close to the true self, and sometimes I feel really gone in the and who is saying that? Who is making that assumption? Who wants control? Who wants to determine what the situation is?
But that is also part of the self, no? It's all the self.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just it is just a veil of ignorance.
Yeah.
It is just something that is put before the eyes that feel like something, and that I have to take on the world as this person. And people say things, but who is going to take care of my kids if I go too deep into this? Who is going to do this and that? And who is taking care of them now? Everything is just happening. But the ignorance of the separate self creates the illusion of that. What is there for me to do? How do I balance this? Okay, I fall in and out of identity. How do I balance that in my life? who is the one who is that has this idea that it is a puppet master of this?
But are you saying just to let the process continue then? Is that all there is to it? Like, has to be that.
What are your choices? Really look.
Yeah.
What are your choices in this? What can you do? And as soon as you touch that, you become someone.
Okay. But it becomes a dead end to me. Or like it just becomes nothing, like, or everything, or. But it's,
yes, but what to be careful with that is that the egoic mind loves these things. It wants a conclusion, one way or the other. It wants the hope of freedom from the egoic mind. So it's looking, it's hoping. Maybe if I go to this teacher, maybe if I practice more, maybe if I read the right books, hoping. And then you come here and you talk to me and it feels like, but there's really nothing that I can do. And the egoic mind says, hopelessness. It just wants to put it into something. Just want a determined position of something. But what is life? We have to ask these questions. What is life? Is life determined positions? Is it like going from point A to point B to point C, and you know what's going to happen and you planned it well and that is your life? People can talk about their lives like that. They can say, first I went to school, then I went to university, then I had this job, and then I did that, and I went traveling, But all those things just happened. But you can present them like that, and then it feels like for a young person, oh, I can follow that and do exactly the same. I can have the same. But this is all just an idea of things. They just happen as they happen. So when you go about your spiritual endeavors, it's so easy, and I know that so many people wanted this. They want to come to a teacher that says, here is the map. If you follow my 10-step program, it will take you to full enlightenment. But that is not how life works. You come and you see what happens. And you have to have the softness to say, I do not know. I do not know what I am. I do not know what this is. And if you can bow to that, then there is the possibility of life showing you. If there is arrogance, there is no way for the light to come in. There has to be spaciousness. There has to be emptiness. There has to be not knowing.
So, I want to continue a bit on that conversation about the ego. maybe it's my ego talking now, but it feels like it wants to defend itself. Basically, isn't the ego necessary or important to go on your day-to-day life, like to take care of the children or your house or your job?
But what you're talking about now is thinking. And when we talk about the egoic mind, we talk about identified thought. Thinking itself is just another thing that appears in your consciousness. Like emotions and thoughts, they will happen. But the identification with it, and what we call the egoic mind, is the idea that thoughts can tell you what you are. It can sound so innocent on the surface because we're so used to it and everyone talks about their life like that. But that creates the sense of separation. That creates all suffering. And the feeling that what I have is not enough. And if you would look at the most destructive trait in humans, that would be it. To always want to accumulate more, to never be satisfied. And that comes from this feeling of separation. So it's not a problem with thinking. Maybe you have a very heady work and you have to think a lot of thoughts to make it work. That is just, and thinking is great. It's great at things like architecture and making a house that is standing for many, many years. And very smart people have thought out those things. And thinking is a tremendous gift that we have, because at its most potent, it can also pose the question, who am I? And this is a beauty of being a human being. That we can have a conversation about identity. We can have a conversation about who are you. We can have a conversation where we talk about things like beingness and awareness, which is the fundament of everything. And what it is to not feel separate. But it is good to question. It's a relevant question. Don't we need thinking? Yes, thinking is a part of the human experience. Thinking is happening. But identification, that's where the problem starts. When you think that you are something. When you say, this is mine. This is what I do. And then someone criticizes that. And this deep sense of separation that comes with all those ideas. And also notice in your experience when that comes and goes. This sense of separation and how much things are important to you, that is also varies a lot. Some days you can feel really generous, and other days it feels like, oh, no. Cannot share my things. It's not good. And all those things have to do with identity and how it plays.
But then, why do we have identity? Or why? I guess there's a lot of bad things with it, but there must be, or I'm thinking, there must be something good for it to be there, I guess.
Yes, and I think that the evolutionary, we needed the egoic mind, but it didn't say so much from that identity was very, very simple. Now our minds we can create so complicated, abstract identities with things that it just goes rampant. So, and you notice also, as soon as people mature and have more experience, that is usually they get less self-centered. All these things, and that comes from the natural maturity with the egoic mind. And also, with children and young people, they can be very much mine. I have to fight for what's mine, and that is a very and some people have asked me also, but how do I get my children to jump over the face of, they're so egoic now. But that is also a natural thing of evolution. You have to go through that. And it seems like the more it's evident to you that you suffer it, the easier it gets to be interested in, how do I get out of that suffering?
Thank you.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, because I'm hearing a lot of trusting in your future self to be able to deal with whatever situation you will be facing. So like the thinking and the planning is kind of you preparing, you're trying to visualize what your future self will be meeting, I guess, in a way.
Yes.
And you can reduce that or create space in your current self by trusting your future self to handle whatever comes your way, so you can handle whatever is in front of you right now. I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm hearing you saying. I don't know if I'm completely way off.
Okay. There is no future self. I don't think that I have said that.
I think I meant, there's always a self in the now.
Yes, but and every idea that you have of the future is a projection.
Yes,
of
yes.
That. And I want to clarify when it comes to planning, that planning itself is not a problem. But most people plan very identified with the outcome of that plan. And then you will suffer that, because you will long, if you're planning your vacation in January, your summer vacation, and all you do all spring is that you long for that to happen, because then you're gonna have this beautiful time, and now you just suffer. This is the problem of the egoic mind, that it just projects in time. And when we talk about the present moment being timeless, is because none of those other things are real. And you have to understand that even if you plan for the future, yes, I'm booking my ticket 6 months in advance. If it's going to happen or not, it's not up to you. It will just happen as it happens, as everything happens. And that is just to be in an alignment with what is. We're not creating a philosophy here. It's not a school of ideas here. You just look and see what this moment is. And if there is a necessity for yourself to project yourself into the future all the time, or long for that future, and see if you give it up, what will it do for you? Does it hold the promises that it says that it does? I want you to check your egoic mind, because it gives a lot of promises that if you come to this point, if you do this and this, and then you come to that point and the egoic mind just completely flip-flops and said you should not have done that. That was not a good choice. It can just play you like this. And if you would have a person in your life that would behave like that, you will say, you are not my friend. I don't trust you. But the egoic mind does all these things. And when it promises things of the future, and when you experience that, you will find happiness, you will find contentment. And I jokingly say sometimes that I wish that all your dreams will come true, so that you will notice that they are nonsense. And these projections into the future, they create an illusion that most people fall into. And that is the sense of that achievements create happiness. Because you project your ideas into the future, and when those criteria are met, you get to feel happy. And you do all those things, and in that moment, you feel happy. So you draw the conclusion, oh, this is what makes me happy. But that happiness comes from the release of the tension of this projection. So that gives a false sense of happiness with achievement. That happiness is already here. I call that happiness the happiness for no reason. And this, for many people, is a strange phenomenon. Because when they notice that for the first time, that if you look inside and you just stay with the moment as it is, there is inherent happiness in that moment. It doesn't need anything outside. It's not because you did something. It's not because you achieved something. It's not because you are a really good person. It's none of that. If you just stay with the moment as it is and completely accept it, that is the nature of it. It's just so common to go with that idea. And since we are very... our behavior and our habits get reinforced when we perceive something as positive. We can do these things time and time again. I remember I saw a documentary about athletes, and they talked about in a segment of it. They talked about what they liked the most about being like a super high level athlete. Was in javelin and in running and all these things. And what they liked, they just described being in the present moment. And they liked winning because then it felt like it was done. But it also scared them. And it's exactly the same things that we talk about here. Because they push themselves so hard, so they get to see the edge also. But it's not in a spiritual context, so they just draw the conclusion that, yes, I felt really good because I won the gold. But they felt really good because they relaxed their expectations for a little while. And then it went away because then they had, now I'm going to the Olympics. Now it's the next goal. And again, the tension builds and it can be released by. And I'm not saying, believe me, look, please really look. See if what is talked about here is true. I want you to find out. Otherwise, it's just some kind of discussion group.
So, the looking, the inquiry, it's not seeing that there's anything there, almost, that creates the stillness. Because I looked for the higher self, a new identity, your real self, the true self.
Yes.
But I can't find the ego. Because I was thinking when you said there's always a self in the present moment. But where is that self? Is there a self in looking? There must be someone looking.
Yes. What is the point that you're looking from?
Exactly, there's nothing there. It's just looking. So
Yeah.
there's no self in the present moment. It's just what is.
Yes.
Just
We
looking.
just refer to the word as self, but there is no center. We can be very clear about that.
Yeah.
There is no center.
Yeah, I just want to confirm it.
Yes.
I don't know, there might be a need to understand now in some way, but because I think it's easy for me to have a new identity with a new center that's
Yes.
higher or knowing, because it's the not finding the center that creates stillness in me.
Yes.
It's hard to talk about. I know you
Yes.
said that as well. But I can't find the self.
No. Good.
And it was a year, yes. And that's the relief.
Yes.
So a year ago when I first saw you, then I was reading Who Am I? And I did inquiry to find out. But now it feels almost like to find out what's not there. And with that not knowing, it's what is. Does this make any sense? I don't know.
Yes. Yes, but while we're referring to Nisargadatta, he calls that the noumenon.
The what?
The noumenon, like the opposite of phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
That is not a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's not a point in space. It's not a thing that you can have. It's not somewhere to look from.
Yeah.
It is not something that you can grasp like that. Hold.
Mm.
And it can also not disappear or be destroyed. It doesn't have to be fixed. It has none of those qualities because it is not a phenomena. It's just pure awareness.
And is awareness and consciousness the same thing?
No.
No. Do you
No.
identify with awareness?
You don't identify with any of it. You just stay as
Because I
you are.
can't find awareness either. That's what I'm saying.
Because awareness is just the awareness. Consciousness is the content.
Mm.
Is the sense of consciousness is what the experience, the content of the experience.
Okay.
So it's all of it. So, and I found it very confusing when I first heard teachers like Nisargadatta also talk about that they are consciousness, because they're of course everything. But also awareness is just the noumenon.
Yes. It's hard to not create a duality between what is and awareness of what is. For me. Because that would be a subtle identity with awareness, right? To create the duality. So the noumenon, or whatever you said.
Yeah.
It's the not finding that's scary, but also what creates the peace in some way.
Yes.
Yeah, I just thought about, because when we talked about there's a self, but it's that non-self, just what isness without the self, that it's all that I can find, that it's nothing there.
Yes.
And it's that realization, not finding something. I thought finding something.
Yes.
Who am I would
Yes.
lead me to something.
To a goal.
Yeah.
Yes. But I think that this is even people who are practiced for a long time, they read all the books, they are hoping for something. They think that there is some kind of phenomena or experience that is going to happen, and it's going to be fireworks, and it's going to be something, and all you find is nothing.
The relief for me is not finding a
Yes, of course, because otherwise you could get it. If it was a phenomenon, you could get it, but that also means that it can be lost. That it would pertain to the body, or it would pertain to this experience in some way, or it's great that it's not a phenomenon. It's just a recognition of beingness. You can say it in so many ways.
Yeah. It's impossible to explain.
Yes.
In a way. Yeah. I just thought I would share what
Yes.
came to mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with a question? No. It's also fine. If you're good, you're good. Would you like to sing something? Yes. Not everyone is comfortable. That's also fine. You sing if you want to. It's simple mantras. You will be able to follow. I just want to say something about why we sing also. Because I know that some people who come here and to listen to me, they enjoy it because they always have the disposition of being quite intellectual. They liked philosophy of things, and then they came into the non-dual teachings and they found that interesting. But they, with all this devotional stuff, they feel a bit that it stinks a little bit. But from what I've seen in my life, and from watching this body, I noticed that brings a completely different flavor. Because the one who is skeptical is usually always in a mode of being skeptical. And with singing, you can go into something that is devotion. And that means that you bow and you trust. And that is part of the expression of your singing mantras. Singing to something greater than yourself. And it's just a beautiful thing. But I understand everyone who has a resistance to it. And I can just briefly... for many years, when I first started meditation, I practiced Buddhist meditation. It was hard. You should work hard. You should sit many hours. Try to be a really good student. And for many years I did that. And I felt like something was missing, but I didn't really realize what it was. It just felt a bit dry and a bit difficult. And I met a beautiful teacher called Raya Krishnan, and he asked me about my practice. And I said, it's going fine, but I still worry quite a bit about things. And he looked at me and he said, you just lack faith. You just need some devotional practice. And I had never considered that. I always thought that felt religious and that it felt like blind faith, and all these things. So I started to attend kirtans, gatherings of people singing mantras, sitting skeptical in the back. And after a while I moved more forward, started to sing more. And in the end I was one of those, the crazy ones in the front with the arms. I was one of those. Because it just opened me up to one part. Because if you have the disposition to be quite intellectual, loves to reason with things, is a very good thing to sing. And with my guru in India, our group, when I was there, was like half bhaktis, the ones who like just to be devoted, a very natural devotion in them, and half jnanis, the ones who are skeptical and philosophical. And the mix of those two worlds is beautiful, I saw. I saw that they really needed each other. Because the one who is skeptical is also worrying, is also trying to figure everything out, try to be in control intellectually. And the ones that are devotional can be too devotional with the wrong crowd or with the wrong people. They're just so trusting. But when they got to meet and the devotional ones got a little bit of that critical thinking and reasoning, and the intellectual ones got the devotional parts, everyone blossomed. So that's why I have it as a thing here. And I like Shiva, so it will be a Shiva mantra, but the new one, the Nataraja one. You know the Nataraja? No? You've seen in yoga studios, there's always this Shiva who is dancing in a circle of fire. That is Nataraja. And this fire is the fire of beingness, is the fire of awareness that burns ignorance away. And if you look closely, it's funny, many people have not noticed this. If you look closely at those statues, Shiva is usually dancing on a little person who lies on the floor like that. And that is the ignorance. That's a symbol for the ignorance. And so it's a beautiful symbol. And the mantra is like this. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om, Shiva Om. Nataraja, Nataraja, Jai Shiva Shankara Nataraja. Thank you, thank you, thank you.